Hello and welcome to Big Little Live in partnership with Buick. I'm Amanda Dobbins from The Ringer. This is Mina from ESPN. We're here to talk about water safety. I know, but water safety is important on this show and in life. This episode is called She Knows. We are here to talk about the fourth episode of Big Little Lies called She Knows. Mina, who is she?
That's a great question.
It could be like three people.
Yes, it could be Merrill, Mary Louise. It could be Bonnie's mom. The show ends with a vision. We call it a vision, but we'll talk about.
Yeah. It could be a lot of things.
Of Bonnie. It could be the detective. It could be, and then there's the question of what does she, we don't know who she is, actually know, right? Because the whole sort of premise of Big Little Lies is that there are many lies. It's not called Big Little Lie, folks. So it's not just about the cover.
That's a good point.
I can't believe I got to laugh on that one.
Well, I don't know. That's true.
I'm feeling really good now.
Yeah.
No, but it's not just about the lie, the cover-up of the murder that's driving this show. There's all these other lies that are kind of coming to the surface, some of which have been uncovered, some of which have not, some of which are still to be determined, like whether or not they're actually lies, like the lie of a marriage, the lie of a relationship.
Yes.
So it's a very ambiguous title that I think encompasses kind of all of this subterfuge that's pervaded the show from the beginning.
Yes, and what you just said, and also the title kind of, I think, sums up the episode, which is like, hodgepodge is not... I don't mean hodgepodge because that sounds unkind, but there's a lot going on in this episode, and there are highs and there are lows, and there's like a 10-minute party in the middle of it. There is a lot going on, and to your point, we are going between a lot of different people. There are a lot of characters on this show, which actually is a great segue. Should we just get into it?
Let's do it.
We're gonna do the Monterey Top 5. That's when we go through the episode character by character, just talk about what happened. I think we gotta start with Bonnie on this one because of the last shot, which is, okay, there's an image of someone who looks a lot like Bonnie.
It was definitely Bonnie, right?
Well, okay, I think it was Bonnie. Does Bonnie have a twin? I don't know.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, that was the first thing that came to mind was like, is it Bonnie? Is it someone else? Is it a sister? There are twins on this episode. There are siblings who disappear on this show.
There
are a lot of things going on.
You mentioned the word twin, and my conspiratorial
saying.
brain immediately went to, is Raymond Perry's identical twin? And is Perry Raymond?
I trust no one.
Oh my God.
Anyway, there is someone.
I thought it was Bonnie.
I think you're supposed to think that it's Bonnie. Right. And there's been like drowning imagery or like water imagery throughout the season. Shout out Andrea Arnold. And there has been, a couple episodes ago, there was who we thought was Bonnie, like little Bonnie in flashback, learning how to swim. So we're meant to associate Bonnie with this image.
The woman who's drowning or who drowned.
Yes.
So it's a vision of Bonnie's mother.
Should we explain how the vision happens? We got to talk about that.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
So it's at the party. It's at the end of the party, which I promise we'll talk more about it. Please don't worry.
Address in great detail.
And Bonnie's mother seems to have an episode.
Yes.
And it looks like a vision.
Stroke or something.
Some sort of stroke.
And she's thinking, there's like a water image, there's like gurgling, and then she's hospitalized. And, it's not suggested that this happened to her before, but there's this weird scene where Bonnie's in the hospital with her mother, and the father asks, did you do this? Which I thought was
He shows up, he wasn't at the party.
Odd.
And the last thing, he's like, what did you say to her?
Yeah, right.
As if Bonnie
triggered it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Bonnie's mother, who is sort of a spiritual, let's put it this way, she definitely supports Marianne Williamson.
Yes.
The Big Little Lies candidate.
Yeah, that's true. Fun fact, did you know that Laura Dern was actually roommates with Marianne Williamson?
It was like everything coming together at once when I found out this. Marianne Williamson, I swear to God, I'm not going to talk about her at great length in this show, is like every Big Little Lies character combined into one person.
It is very true. It is the spirit of, we're going to talk about the Esalen Institute later. I mean, this is packed. Anyway.
Yeah, so the mom, it's been hinted that she is some sort of spiritual person, whether she has visions or is like a healer.
She's like a mystic, there are crystals
involved.
And there is a scene at the party where she and Bonnie are dancing, and she kind of lays her hands upon Bonnie in a way that it's maybe religious or some sort of spiritual thing rather than just kind of like dancing with your daughter.
Right, she said something.
And Bonnie pulls away and is like, no.
Right,
we're not doing that.
A couple episodes back, the mom alluded to the fact that Bonnie may have dabbled in or been involved in this sort of, again, we don't know what spirituality or whatever it is before. Yeah. I will say, okay, so she has a vision, and it's either a vision of the past, the future, whatever. It could be a metaphor, it could be literal.
Was it a flashback?
could have been a flashback.
Do we know?
Well, let me say this. I would prefer that it was a flashback or a metaphor and not like a vision of something that would happen. I would prefer there not to be like a mystical element to the show, in part because
Mina is anti-crystals.
I am firmly anti-crystals.
Okay.
And I am also firmly anti like having one of the two black characters on the show be a mystic. It's a little for a show. Okay,
That's a
so
great
like
point.
that is like it's a very much a white lady drama that knows most of the time knows it's a white lady drama and plays with that. Like there's a scene at the party where they're all dancing and it's an all black disco band.
Yes.
And I thought that was to me like a good example of the show being very hyper conscious of the racial dynamics at play
and commenting on it.
And commenting on it and sort of, mocking sort of this like these women in some ways and the fact that they're but for her to be this character who comes in and has visions is not something I love, I guess, in the context of the show. But what it does do is bring back this theme of drowning.
It is a plot device.
It is a plot device.
True.
Yeah. It raises these questions that we've been asking, like, what did she actually see?
Yeah, I don't think we know yet. Let's move on in the Monterey Top 5 to Renata.
Oh, Renata.
We will talk about the party, but before we get to the party, we have to talk about bankruptcy court, so you have some history as a financial related, you know more than I do about money and journalism and how these things work. Do you know, is this a realistic portrayal of bankruptcy court?
I know about corporate bankruptcies.
Okay,
I didn't know that when you declare personal bankruptcy or when you're being pursued by the feds, you have to literally give up everything.
Apparently. Again, I mean, how much should we trust Big Little Lies for financial advice? I mean, please don't. Number one, do not follow Renata and Gordon's because you don't want to be in this situation. But yeah, I did not know that this is how it works. And I didn't know that they just go through charges of everything. I suppose it makes sense that you have to file.
Yeah, I guess. It feels kind of random,
Yeah.
I guess. I mean, so Renata and Gordon show up in court. Renata humorously goes through the metal detector again several times. Oh, this time she's wearing all black because it is her funeral of her wealth. And they sort of enumerate some of their assets, like the house, the $20 million house, the 58-foot yacht, the Amabella.
Two more vacation homes. I believe there's like a condo in Aspen or similar, and then
they are rich.
Yeah.
And the Tesla, because they take an Uber.
Oh, right.
They give up the Tesla, I guess.
It's not an Uber, it's a taxi, by the way.
And yes.
Because the meter is like shown very clearly in the...
Right, true, yeah. And then a Rolex, and then the wedding ring, it's suggested, he asks about, but then at the end of the episode, we see her with the wedding ring. So she, I guess, retained it. Perhaps she didn't want to retain it, it's suggested.
Oh, you think that? She didn't seem super prepared.
Yeah, I guess, what was interesting about that scene, other than that I learned a lot about personal bankruptcy, is that she has kind of a confrontational moment with the judge. And I want to ask you about this. If he's a judge, I don't know, arbitrator, whatever, he asks her if she inherited wealth. She indignantly replies, no, I'm a self-made woman, which is something we know about Renata at this point.
Yes.
And then she says, like, I've been dealing with men like you my whole life. Like, how do you feel about that scene, like what the character is clearly going through, and perhaps, I guess, like how her background figures into this journey that she's on?
Well, I kind of took she says the men like you thing after the Botox incident.
Right.
Because he goes through the charges and he's like, I believe it was $4,000. If I'm misremembering, it was.
Seems like a lot for Botox.
It was a lot. I
wouldn't know.
I actually don't know, except my understanding is that you can get Botox for less than this. Anyway, she is clearly getting top shelf Botox. Yeah. And
looks great,
has to go through the charge, but so she does that where she kind of finally admits that it's the Botox. And then, at least, she doesn't actually say. That's just what I took it to mean, and I think I think someone in Renata's life probably would explore Botox. And then she's like, I've been having to deal with men like you, and so I have to look a certain way, and I can't age, and like the implications of that, which plays into the kind of the larger idea of how these women all feel that they have to outwardly be perfect, and projection and image, and what they're only concerned with the outside while their insides are kind of eating them alive.
Yeah.
So I thought it was more about that, and it was more a slight at Gordon maybe than
this
at the judge or like her childhood.
This whole episode and really like her arc this season is about her relationship with Gordon, right? And the episode begins with the pumpkin carving party, which we'll get to, but there's a scene in which the cat ear clad Renata Jane asks her about, she's like, why are you still with him? And Renata says, we stay. That's what women do. We stay, which is like a crazy thing to hear coming from Renata Klein, superwoman CEO, mega powerful person, like coming out of her mouth. It's kind of crazy to hear. And then at the party, her and Gordon have this moment. We will get to their outfits. When he kind of asks her, like, are you ever going to forgive me? Which is obviously the inverse of what happens between Maddie and Ed, which we'll get to.
Right.
And she doesn't say no, but she brings up her own past and how she built this wealth for Amabella, the daughter. And it's like she's angrier with him. She's not even angry with him about lying to her or anything. I don't think it really has anything to do with their relationship. She feels like he disempowered her and robbed her and her child of escaping whatever it is that she came from.
Of escaping it, and also of this perfect world that she created. She because I think, I appreciate that maybe she had a tough childhood, and I think being self-made is great, but they're kind of underbaking that, or that it goes alongside with the fact that she is just a image status obsessed. And it's like, literally they go from bankruptcy court to throwing the most ridiculous, let's go to the party. Let's go to the Disco Inferno. This is for a second grader. Do second graders know what disco is?
So I was trying to figure out why had a disco party.
Yeah.
By the way, second graders I remember when I was in grade school, we did learn in chorus some disco songs.
Really?
Not about disco conceptually or the 70s. It was interesting, I think, to like compare it, Amanda, to the party last season. So we have 2 Amabella parties bookending these seasons.
Yes, Renata and Bonnie meet on 2 dance floors.
Yes, and last season, Amabella has this like super princessy, if you look back, there's a lot of pink, and she's wearing like a princess dress and a crown, and there's like Frozen gift bags.
Yeah, it's like Frozen adjacent, if not actually Frozen themed.
Yes, right, the Frozen theme
because
was
then Madeline takes
yes.
the kids to Frozen on Ice.
It was a little bit of a screw you to Madeline. But it was like this princessy, idealized image, like everything's pristine and perfect. This season, it's the 70s. And it does feel a little bit like it's a commentary on kind of like what's happening in these women's lives, what's happening in this season. Like they are unraveling, right? It's not about that like 1950s perfect little image anymore. And
I mean, they got the Tramps with actual Earl Young to show up to sing Burn Baby Burn, which, I thought that was probably a conscious choice of everything is kind of going up in flames.
That's true.
At least within that house.
Yes.
And it basically...
pretty much everyone.
Pretty much everyone's house. Yeah. What do you think is in the gift bags? That's the other thing I wanted to ask you. Like, what's giving away? Because Renata's making a big point of handing out the gift bags one by one, and that's actually when Elizabeth, Bonnie's mom, the incident happens. What's in the gift bags?
I wish I could have seen. Have you ever been to a party with gift bags?
You mean like a personal party? Like someone I know, a friend of... No, I haven't.
Is that just a thing rich people... I mean, rich people love costume parties.
Yes.
Clearly, much like college girls. And I think that's just because...
one thing to keep in mind, this is like 2 weeks before Halloween. That's a lot of costume pressure to put on people in a short amount of time. I would not handle it well.
We will address the costumes.
I would do costumes well. But what is that? It's like, 2 weeks before, whatever.
Yeah.
That's what rich people do. And they do also like to give out gift bags, but I always think of gift bags as like the corporate sponsored.
Right.
When you go to a gala. Right. Maybe there are Bose headphones in this. That seems totally possible.
That feels on
It's suspicious that nothing from this party showed up on the bankruptcy statement.
Well, they commented, I think her lawyer's like, don't mention the party.
Yes, but like surely they had to charge some things ahead of time. Whatever. It's fine. I'm glad that Amabella got to have her party. She seemed like she was having a nice time.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we're gonna keep going in the Monterey Top 5. This is when we go through the episode character by character. Let's do Madeline. Let's do it quickly. I have 3 points that I'd like to make about Madeline, actually.
Okay.
Is that number one, it's not she's just in limbo because Ed's making her be in limbo, and that's fine.
Yes.
She is 100% the type of person that would host a pumpkin carving party, and I just want to put that out there, that is like a extremely Madeline detail.
A pumpkin, yes.
Yeah.
And then the moms are wearing like Halloween-y.
Right.
Like Renata's got the cat ear. Madeline is wearing, there's a great scene where she's smoking a cigarette while wearing a pumpkin like apron. What is it about moms like that? It's like, the second you have kids, something in your genetic makeup changes where you're like, I must have attire that is themed to holidays.
I really have no idea, but they all do. Or, I mean, Madeline and Renata mostly, I think.
Yeah, I feel like Madeline probably has an apron for every holiday.
My second point is that it's just far too soon to be initiating sex with Ed.
Yes,
you have resolved none of your emotional issues. What makes you think this is gonna work?
She probably thought that would go a long way towards...
Maybe. I mean, she does seem kind of delusional. At some point, she confronts him. Is just like, are you ever gonna forgive me?
Which I appreciate.
Please just leave. I do too. But if you have to ask that, then probably it's not time for like the late night just sex.
They have solved nothing about their relationship. And there's this other scene where she has that confrontation with him later, but there's an earlier one. It's after the party. She's complaining about Mary Louise showing up, which we'll talk about. And Ed is saying, with you, you're always like there's no middle ground. You're either low key or it's like charge.
I felt indicted by that personally, but anyway, it's fine. So
like that happens a lot for you.
It's good TV
when
writing.
Watching Madeline.
Yeah.
And she says, he says, why was it not charge with our relationship? Like if we had this conflict in our relationship, where was the aggression and straightforwardness? And she says, because it wasn't about our relationship, it was about us. I don't believe her. Anymore. I think there was a moment, we've talked about this whole like, it's not you, it's me excuse, and how it pertains to her and her past and all that, but the more they show of their relationship, the more, like the therapy sessions, I think the more we've seen of Ed, quite frankly, because I don't think we had a clear idea who he was maybe in the previous season, but the more we see like the passive aggression,
it's true.
It kind of feels like maybe they're not compatible. Like maybe she was actually acting out on some sort of
It's a good point.
Dissatisfaction.
We spent the whole first season kind of thinking Ed was a drip, but maybe it's not that he's a drip, maybe it's just that they are not right for each other.
Yeah, I mean, what the heck's going on with him?
I don't know,
Bonnie?
do you think that they'll resolve it at the Esalen Institute? This was incredible. We just have to talk about this for a second. Madeline suggests that they go to the Esalen Institute, which if you don't know is like a hippy-dippy
It's real.
therapy place in Big Sur.
Yes,
it is real.
Oh, wow.
And it is also apparently where, it's not apparently, but it's where they shot the last Don Draper Mad Men scene where he like does yoga and invents the cookbook. And it's very, very big with Silicon Valley types who like go and wanna.
So this season is going to end with Madeline inventing Coca-Cola.
Yes.
Wow.
There we go.
I had no idea that was a real thing.
Yeah. Moving on, Monterey Top 5. Let's talk about Jane. It's pretty quick with her, I think. She took a date to the party. That's nice.
Corey.
And, I still call him Aquarium Guy. And then she gets a little freaked out. It seems like some of her past experience comes back to her while having Corey in that position. And then she does the smart, responsible, like healthy person thing and explains to him what happened. And then they don't really show his reaction. He just kind of grabs her hand in a supportive way.
It's implied, I think, from the characterization of Corey that he's the kind of guy who reacts to that well. Yeah, it is. I think in the way that last season it kind of felt like Bonnie was in a whole different world from the rest of the to me, this season, it feels like Jane is on a completely different track from everyone else on the show. She's not detached from them, right? Like, there's this great scene where she confronts Mary Louise, who moves into her apartment building. And yet, like, if this season is all about these women's lies and lives falling apart and unraveling, she's putting it back together.
Yes.
And not just, healing, but also, like, moving on with things, reckoning with things, finding love, being honest, and you said doing the healthy right thing. And it gives you a little bit of a breather, I think, in a show that can be really difficult at times.
A little bit of breather. It's also an interesting structural insight because she is obviously dealing with the revelation of knowing who Perry is and how Perry connects to Ziggy, but in a way that was information that she was searching for all last season and she was really traumatized by. And so this season is kind of about resolution and moving forward for her, and she is doing that while all the rest of the characters are just freaking out. So she's kind of in a parallel alternate outcome track.
From a show, again, just from like a meta perspective, like watching the show, it's comfort, it's refreshing. As we talked about last week, like it's so irksome to watch Mary Louise interact with like literally anyone, but especially the other women, and we'll get to that confrontation. But every confrontation she has with Jane, I'm like, because Jane like stands up to her, and she is direct and honest, and she kind of feels like the only person who has any power over her in a weird way, or like has a backbone around her, and that is sort of her role in the show right now. It's like this sort of palate cleanser.
Yeah, I agree with you. If you're just joining us, this is Big Little Live in partnership with Buick, and we are doing the Monterey Top 5 when we go through the show character by character. It is time to talk about Celeste, and that this is a serious hard part of the show. This is tough. We can go in order. We can start with The Slap. Do you remember that television show, The Slap?
Yes, I was thinking about that because I wrote down The Slap, and then I was like, why? And I was like, why does this feel like something? I was like, oh right, there was a whole show about a slap.
So Mary Louise shows up at the pumpkin carving party. She was not invited, and announces that she has taken a unit in Jane's building, which, as Celeste asks for a word, and then Celeste yells at her, "There are boundaries, Mary Louise," which is great. There are boundaries!
Yes.
There are boundaries!
Like, really good thing to know, yeah.
Yes. And Mary Louise doesn't accept those boundaries, and they get into it, and Celeste slaps her.
Not only does Mary Louise not accept the boundaries,
right.
she
doesn't
says
accept
to her,
that.
I don't believe Jane.
That's important. I didn't mean to elide that. Yes.
Yes, and this is important because I was like, oh, myself watching.
Yeah.
And then she, in speaking to Celeste, says like, well, you know, maybe I'm wondering what he was like seeking refuge from or something.
Yes.
And, like implying that like he was right to freaking cheat and rape. And then afterwards, after she slaps her, Mary Louise asks if that's foreplay or something. I mean, good Lord, woman.
It's really tough.
That might be her most villainous, on a show in which Meryl Streep has had like many humorous, villainous, over-the-top moments. That I think was the angriest I've ever been under a character.
It was repulsive.
Yeah.
And Celeste clearly feels the same way. It's like a natural reaction even though she loses control. And so then they have coffee, they try to resolve it, but Mary Louise goes to see a family custody lawyer anyway. And so that's happening on one track while Celeste is out with Jane and they are having drinks. And Jane goes home and Celeste goes home with the bartender. And
oh my God,
which
that
you know
scene.
what? She's allowed to go home with the bartender.
Yes.
The trouble comes the next morning when she has like the eyeliner that's gone wrong, which is how you know that something's wrong with Celeste. You remember in the first episode when she's driving, it's the same eyeliner.
Yes, yeah.
And
it's the I've been on a bender eyeliner.
Right, and it's apparently that she's taken Ambien and she doesn't remember what happens. And the kids come in, Mary Louise comes in, and then the bartender comes in. And it's oh dear.
The way that's
I want to hide
it's
right
so
here right now.
The way it's shot too, where like they come in, you see Celeste, you're like something's not right, and then they show the guy out of it. It's like he's not in focus.
Yeah.
And you kind of see him walking in. I was like, no, like it's so cringy.
Yeah.
There's a million things to discuss here.
Some of it's troubling. Like it's troubling.
Well, that's what I want to discuss. Okay,
Yeah.
because Mary Louise is repulsive. She is horrible. She is clearly hiding something. We will get to that. She's a terrible, terrible communicator. But when she says, Celeste, you're a mess, she's not wrong.
She's not wrong.
And I want to ask you, like, why, setting aside like the stuff with Mary Louise, and obviously she is in the wrong, why do you think that Celeste is doing this? Like, why?
I mean,
is it just like going through the grief process?
Yeah.
Like, clearly this isn't the first like time she's had Ambien sex that she doesn't remember, you know, that it was hinted at before with the car scene.
Yes.
Like, what do you think is the function? Like,
I think, I mean, grief for sure.
Yeah.
Also, she was in a very difficult situation before Perry died. She was working through a lot of issues. She is a troubled person.
Yeah.
And I think that she's trying to keep it together for her children. She's got a mother-in-law who is unbelievably difficult and a monster basically, and making things worse. She's trying to negotiate this secret. She's trying to be, you know, she's just not handling it well. And you can understand the causes and understand why this is happening while also just being like, this is not a good situation.
Yeah.
And I think even they've shown Madeline kind of trying to break through as well and kind of say as much in this episode. Madeline is there kind of being like, she's asking questions. I think she's doing it in a more respectful way perhaps than Mary Louise is. And also, you know, you have to make sure that someone in that situation is going to respond to your concern or else you're not helping the situation. And Mary Louise is not helping the situation.
Yeah, I think...
Even though she's trying to, and she is right about certain things.
She is right about certain things, and I think that's sort of the intelligence of this show, right? It's that she is very much a villain, but she's a villain who invites you, or the depiction of her invites you to ask whether or not she's actually wrong or what her motivations might be. And as it pertains to Celeste and the children and sort of some of the stuff that she's going through, many of the questions that Mary Louise asks are deeply insulting, infuriating, retrograde, but some of them are not.
Right.
And I think while it's absolutely excessive for her to go to a family lawyer and I mean,
it's just such a mess. And I think the therapist says it best when she says, I've seen how these things play out and no one wins.
And
that does seem to be the case, that no one is going to win in this one.
Celeste gets smashed. She's like, I'm going to fight it.
She's a lawyer. Don't forget.
Yeah, I would like to see a little bit more of that Celeste from season 1.
I think,
the uber competent lawyer Celeste.
It's tough to watch.
I mean,
it has been for a long time, and Celeste was certainly the most serious and difficult part of season 1, and it makes sense that she is in season 2, but I'm not sure I expected this. I don't know why.
For her to have the most tragic arc I feel like it's fair to say so far it's been the most tragic arc of the show, despite the fact that she's technically been freed from this.
Right.
Which is, again, actually very true to life, right?
Of course.
It's not like just eliminating this guy solves all of your problems.
Let's move on to Detective Merrill, which is when we talk about Meryl Streep. We obviously have been talking about Mary Louise a bit already. And we called this segment Detective Merrill originally because it was about Merrill trying to kind of solve the case. We still have our things here. We haven't used these in a while because
she's
she's not really, that's what I wanted to bring up with you. She doesn't really, there you go.
That's how I feel.
It's great, props are great. But she doesn't seem super interested in this secret anymore. But that just kind of seems like a fake out, like she's trying to distract. And I'm wondering whether she'll use it.
There is the scene in the very beginning when she crashes the pumpkin carving party, which is very much a sentence that you would only hear in a discussion of Big Little Lies. And she gives like a long, lingering look at Bonnie. And I think that's meant to, and Bonnie clearly gets a little shook by it. She mentions it later.
I just thought that was because she was racist.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
That's what I thought.
Okay, see, that's entirely possible. I thought it was meant to kind of tease the fact that she's still a little bit on the case, but clearly right now, her main focus is getting the kids, separating them from Celeste. And I have some thoughts about, I think, why that is, right? So we don't yet know what the hell happened with Mary Louise and her son.
Yeah,
and her
so that's the other important piece of information.
Matters.
So in the kind of detente moment between Celeste and Mary Louise at the coffee place that is not Tom's Coffee Place, the greatest mystery of season 2 is what the hell happened to Tom's Coffee Place. But anyway.
At us, if you know.
She's talking about grief, and she is actually trying to speak to Celeste as a human being, and she says, like, grief is, you can't bear it alone, it's meant to be shared. And Celeste points out that Perry and Raymond's father left after the accident, and Mary Louise says, yes, he blamed me, and he was right to blame me. And so that's all we know. But that's new-ish, that's new information, I think.
I don't believe it.
Okay.
The straightforward interpretation of whatever happened with Mary Louise is that Perry's brother died in some sort of accident, probably a water-related accident, and the father left, who we don't know his name or anything about him, and that Mary Louise raised Perry on her own. I just don't think that's true.
I don't either, but I don't know. I'm curious what actually happened. There have been a lot of hints and no actual information.
I guess part of the reason I don't think it's true is I don't believe that Mary Louise had no idea that Perry was a monster, or that he had sort of these tendencies in him.
I agree.
Which meant one of the central themes of the show is things being passed down from parents to children, which isn't to say that if you're an abuser, necessarily your parents
and also
were abusers.
What kids learn from parents and example and how,
But I do think it's highly likely that there was something very dark and messed up happening in their family, whether it was that the father who left was an abuser or did something terrible, or that Mary Louise herself did, I don't know. But I think that she is covering that up in her mind. She's covering up this idea that Perry either learned from that or became that or was a monster. And everything she does, every action on this show is meant to rationalize him and to sort of continue that cover up. It's like, oh, okay, wait, no, he was driven to do this. Celeste, and you were a bad mother. And it's all about, to me, in my mind, she's projecting and trying to come up with like an explanation that satisfies her. And that explanation entails separating Celeste from the children because she wants Celeste to be a mess and a bad mother and a bad person.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I think I'm not totally sure how much we're going to learn about all the secrets on this show. Like, I don't know what's going to be revealed and
like there won't be a crazy twist.
Maybe there will be. Now there will be because I said I'm not sure. But I do think that we will find out what happened with Mary Louise and the kids because I think they have made her such a monster that at some point they do really have to explain it, or else it's just kind of a cartoon villainy at this point.
I totally agree.
I mean, which maybe would be interesting in its way as well. But
no, I think you're right. I think, and again, since this show explores in such great depth how difficult it is to move on from trauma and to be at the center of it, wherever your role in is, I do imagine that has to figure into Mary Louise's journey and who she is as a character.
Yes.
And we're gonna find out at some point.
Yes. Also, I mean, you just have to let Meryl Streep act that scene, you know? You just have to let Meryl Streep do her moment. Anyway.
Yeah, totally.
Let's move on to Pick a Side, which is basically our version of small claims court, where we settle small disputes on the show, not the big ones. We can't settle the big problems, but we can settle the small to medium ones. And this week, Mina and I are going to tackle, this is medium, I would say.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this is bigger than
whether it's
like Ed versus Nathan fight.
It's should they have kept the secret? Because you'll recall at the party, Celeste and Bonnie are talking with Madeline, and they both are point fingers at her basically, and are like, it was your fault. You said that he slipped, and we all went away with it. And I wish that, you know, and they both say we shouldn't have kept a secret. We shouldn't have gone along with it. And so I'm gonna argue one side, you're gonna argue the other. We're gonna go to a resolution. You are presenting for Celeste and Bonnie. So would you?
I am presenting for everyone who watches this show.
Okay.
Because it is the logical question. I feel like that has lingered over this entire season, which is, why did they lie? What sort of idiotic decision led to them perpetuating this lie, which could have been so easily solved?
I agree with you. We had talked about that so early on, is why did they lie?
Yes, it's dumb that they lied. They could have easily said this was self-defense. And it was so close to it basically was self-defense in some ways. They were having a tussle. Perry, there was evidence that he was abusing his wife and that he was fighting with all of them. Totally would have been easier to say, oh yeah, it was self-defense, we pushed him, or whatever.
Okay.
So
that's your case?
So my point is that these other women, Bonnie and Celeste in this situation, are perfectly justified to be frustrated with Madeline. And by the way, they're very gentle with her in this scenario. They're really not attacking her.
Yeah, it's true that they're friends.
Yeah, they're just like, this sucks.
Okay.
I wonder why it sucks.
Okay.
So that is my feeling about the situation.
All right. Arguing for Madeline. Here's the thing. We do actually know why they lied, and it's because there was a lot of confusion, and then Madeline said he slipped, and everyone else went away with it. And as Mina just said, you think they're justified in being frustrated.
Yes.
You know what? They made their own decision. They are individual grown-up people who went along with the decision. If you don't want to lie, don't lie anymore. You have a total ability to go to the cops, to go to Mary Louise, to go to anyone, say your thing. You're doing it because you're scared or you're not going to stand up for it. You're a grown-up. Stand by your decisions. They chose to go along with it. They went along with it. Don't blame her now because you can't handle it.
Since we're clearly manifesting our own neuroses and psychological issues
when are we
here,
not?
I am 100% the person who does not plan the scheme, but then gets in trouble. I am the person in the classroom who, if everyone's being rowdy, the teacher just makes eye contact with me and punishes me. That's definitely something that happened to me a lot growing up. So I really empathize with being forced to go along with something even though you aren't the ringleader, and I sympathize with it. I also think, by the way, if they had, if any of the other women had said, no, actually this happened, they would have implicated Madeline, who had already executed the lie. So they were not only protecting Bonnie, they were protecting Madeline at that point.
That's true. It could have been sorted out. I'm just saying, it's been a year.
Yeah.
It's too late to be blaming individuals. You've made so many choices since then.
Honestly, at this point,
own it.
If they came forward, how much trouble would they even get in? Because it's not like some mess. What they're covering up, right? It's not like a intentional murder or whatever. You could still paint it as a self-defense situation. I don't even know why they feel guilty about it. Why is Bonnie?
Okay, all right.
I wouldn't feel guilty about it at all.
Okay, then why are they mad at Madeline? In conclusion, don't be mad at Madeline. Be mad at yourself.
Yeah, I guess, if they're feeling that guilty. I'd be fine with it if it was me.
Okay, great.
Peace out, Perry.
Okay, I want to talk about the party some more, and specifically, I want to talk about the party's location. A few weeks ago, you and I were lucky enough to go on a big little road trip in partnership with Buick, and we visited Renata and Gordon's house. So it turns out that Renata and Gordon's house is actually in Malibu, and so we got to go. And the reason we're talking about it now is obviously it's where the disco happened in this episode, but also we learned in this episode is about to be sold.
Yes.
Yeah, you don't get to keep your $20 million home, as they said in the course of this episode, when you are declaring bankruptcy.
Which we also learned is not actually worth $20 million.
Yeah, well, the estimates right now, I don't believe it's for sale. It's used primarily for locations, or it has been used for locations before, but I think like the Zillow estimate was around 9 or 10 million. Yeah.
Million, which I mean, it's obviously ridiculous.
It's not money that I have.
It's
10,000 you would like to send it to me.
Square feet, 7 bedrooms, 9 bathrooms. It was also built in the early 90s, which like when you look at the architecture kind of makes sense. It's not a super modern design. Although in one episode, Renata alludes to the fact that they'd like put a lot of work into the house and renovated
that's true.
I mean, it's ridiculous. Like,
it's very clear that the man cave is at a different location.
Where is the man cave?
The man cave is not here. The man cave is
upsetting.
elsewhere. That's okay, because this is mostly. The thing I've always wondered about this house, and this is making it clear with the multiple angles, because you don't see all of this on the show, but the man cave doesn't make sense because all of this is windows, right? This is like, I don't know where they actually live in this house because it's just all party space. And then fire pit space. That's lovely.
So many fire pits, so many pools. There's a hot tub. I guess the man cave is like embedded somewhere, like a castle.
Lovely gardens. You don't see this on this show either. Apparently there's also a vineyard.
Yes, I think
or
we'll
a
see.
Winery?
Yeah, we got
there's
some footage
something
of that.
wine related.
I mean, there are these like incredible paths, all the way because it kind of is built on the side of the hill going into the. Okay, you can kind of see.
Yeah, those are vines, I guess.
The vines that they've got. This is my favorite part. There's a bamboo garden. Who knew?
Beautiful.
Feels like something Renata Klein would have to go on like peaceful walks. And
I don't know. She really only stays at the pool adjacent area, which now I understand it's quite expansive.
Yes.
Many loungers.
Yes.
I get it. But yeah, she really only likes to yell at people by the pool.
Yes, why? I mean, wouldn't you want to yell at people in your bamboo
garden? I guess that's where you live, over there to the right. Yeah.
That wing of the house.
It's very nice. I wonder how long it will take them to sell. Probably a while. I don't know. I'm not familiar with the market for $20 million homes.
Well, especially in quote unquote Monterey, which is where it's supposed to be.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll find out. It was nice. Beautiful house. Very sorry. R.I.P. to Renata's house.
Gordon's Kingdom.
If you're just joining us, this is Big Little Live in partnership with Buick, and it is time for Fit of the Week. I honestly can't believe we waited this long for Fit of the Week. It is our fashion segment, and frankly, we have too much to discuss. This is all disco focused because we are sensible people, and they love a costume party, a lot of costumes. Should we just go through? I have thoughts about most people. Maybe you have some thoughts as well? Okay.
Yes, it's fits of the week, really. I mean,
it is
many
the many fits, yes. Some good, some, questionable. Bonnie looks nice. That's what I'll start with.
As always.
Bonnie, yes,
great.
I mean, it's Zoe Kravitz. Shout out to you, Zoe Kravitz. But she looks fashionable and also theme appropriate.
I will say with Bonnie, like in the beginning of the season, she's kind of wearing these like sad sweaters that are meant to kind of indicate her state of mind. But it feels like as the season has gone on, she actually kind of looks more like herself.
Yeah, well, I think she's also been. She was in a very dark place at the beginning of the season, right? And she's kind of gone back to Nathan. She'll like have lunch with Ed. She's healing, sort of.
Yeah, she looks great.
Yeah, okay. How do you feel about Reese? Madeline, I'm sorry, but it's like it's once they're in just totally different costumes, it's very confusing.
Very impressed by her hair.
Yes.
She kind of perms it out or whatever. And I guess this is a pervasive critique. How are their costumes so good? Like, how are they so elaborate? Not just because I was thinking about her hair.
For one, it's a TV show. Also, they are playing extremely wealthy women with a lot of time on their hands.
Yes, I guess that's the answer to our earlier question about why do rich people like costume parties, because it's something they can spend their money on.
Yes, yeah. I do think that Madeline wears a hipster would wear this today award.
Yes.
That the tracksuit specifically, like you could just see that on someone
100%.
much younger and trying to be cool, and it would probably work.
Yeah. Same with Ed.
It would not look good on me, but that's okay. Let's talk about Jane, who I just feel looks like she's in a production of Hair.
It's a little more 60s than 70s.
It's a little hippie to me.
I was so distracted because she actually dressed her son like Ziggy Stardust.
Yes,
I don't know if you caught that. Very elaborate. Again, well, okay, where does Jane get the time and money to make such elaborate costuming?
Well, I was thinking they have not shown any part of her job at the aquarium. They basically no longer work at the aquarium. They just go surfing. This show dislikes animals so much that they will not even show the animals in the aquarium. And I that's for you, yeah.
What if someone drowns in the aquarium?
Wow. And then gets eaten by a shark. Wow.
And Jane doesn't know how to save them
An
because
alternate ending for Big Little Lies
she
season
never
2.
goes to work and has no idea.
Yeah. So she hasn't really been at the aquarium, so I guess she has time.
I'm in the aquarium. And she looks great too. I mean, yeah, the Ziggy costume is like a bit nuts,
Okay.
But
We don't really even see much of Celeste because she's just hiding in the background, but
just a little bit,
she looks nice. She's wearing one of the headbands.
yeah, a little bit more.
She's more like Coachella disco, but
like,
that's fine.
Probably the thing I would be most likely to wear.
Yeah, so you had a lot of thoughts about Renata and Amabella. Oh boy, here we go. She's putting her cards down. Take it away.
Okay. So Renata and Amabella are wearing matching outfits.
Yeah.
Exactly matching.
Yes.
Not even like referential to each other. They're wearing the same.
Right.
It's like a gold lame,
It's off the shoulder.
Donna Summers-esque dress, off the shoulder, hair kind of done up. I would have been so embarrassed if my mother had me. You know, it reminds me of like did you ever know any girls who had those American Girl dolls, but then also bought the matching American Girl outfit?
You're talking to one. I had a Samantha dress. I had the Samantha school dress. Oh, I can't believe I'm doing this in front of an audience. I had Samantha obviously because of the hair.
Yeah.
And then this is so embarrassing, but it's fine.
Nope.
I had the Samantha school dress and I wore it in a Christmas pageant and I had to sing, this is awful. You know the Christmas song about like, I am this donkey, something, something. Anyway.
Yeah.
I had to sing, I had a solo and I sang it wearing the Samantha school dress in second grade.
This is all derailed. I don't care about the fits anymore. Is that the only time?
That I can't, yeah.
Is that the only time you ever wore the Samantha doll school dress?
I think so. I mean, it's not something that why are you so close to me right now?
I asked because I have a strong memory of Mr. and Mrs. Kimes being like, you're only going to wear this doll dress once.
Yeah, I definitely only wore it once. Yeah, I have like, where are you going to wear it? It's so specific. It's like 20s cosplay or earlier.
Yeah,
I think
right.
like
she was Victorian.
Yeah.
She was the Victorian one.
She's like turn of the century, I think.
Can we just do like a whole American Girls
Okay.
show?
Anyway,
I had Felicity, by the way.
I did wear those costumes.
That's what that reminded me of.
I didn't but I wasn't holding the doll with me. But
why would you get a matching costume with your doll if you're not going to take a picture with the doll?
I don't think I was interested in the matching aspect of it as much as like being the person in the story.
You were like, this is a sick look. Yeah, exactly.
And I would like to be Samantha, therefore I will wear this dress. I don't know.
I never wanted to see a picture more in my life.
I don't know whether there's evidence. I can't believe again that I shared that with everyone. But I did also, the other thing I never did mother-daughter. And I'm an only child, which will explain so much to everyone watching. You probably already knew that. But I did have a younger cousin who I named Paige, who I liked a lot. And sometimes like we would go on vacation and we had the matching dresses.
Looks,
yeah. But they were never the exact same. It was like the same print. So it was the Laura Ashley years.
This is, again, like a little bit of a derail.
Whatever.
It's a tangent. Have you ever been on a bachelorette party where they make you wear something?
I refuse, yeah. It was strictly a childhood thing.
You just won't go on the party, or you'll be like, I'm not going to wear this rhinestone-studded tank top.
I think I object to wearing anything so rudely that people know not to invite me. No, absolutely not. Basically, starting in high school, I don't really do costumes anymore. I wouldn't say that I was doing the Samantha thing from a costume situation.
When was your last Halloween costume?
I honestly, a few years ago, we had my friend was dating some chick that we didn't really like, but she was having a party, and so I went as Ina Garten because all I had to do was like wear a blue shirt.
I think I know what you're talking about. Can we just do a new segment called Exploring Amanda, where I just ask her questions about...
All right. Do you have anything else that you would like to say about the...
Yes, I do.
Yes, we didn't even talk about Gordon.
This
is out of control. Thanks, everyone, for watching.
His costume is amazing. It's clearly like a Pacino, Scarface kind of reference, which is absolutely how a dude like Gordon would approach a 1970s costume party, is just wanting to look like Scarface. He looked incredible.
Yeah.
He also looked incredible at the Elvis things. He may have repurposed some of the elements from his costume last year for this one.
He looked incredible in the hospital. The thing is that you are just pro Gordon.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah. Also, I think for, again, the purpose of the show, there is something very visually, like, hilarious about having a character like Gordon deliver a serious line like, "Are you ever going to forgive me? We'll dress like Al Pacino and
That's
Scarface."
a pretty intense speech.
It's super intense.
He
still loves her.
Yeah. I mean, and they're making him really sympathetic. He screwed up.
He's just
he did screw up. Okay, all right.
He's
Anything
just the
else?
best dude. No, I think if we had to crown a winner for Fit of the Week, Who would you pick of all the costumes we discussed?
That's a great question. I think probably, actually, we didn't talk about Elizabeth, Bonnie's mom, who looks great, and who is wearing the actual.
Faceted out, yeah.
I think you're meant to assume that it is like possibly from the 70s, but it's kind of like Missoni-esque. She looks great. I'm going with her.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Right.
Rough night. So
yeah, exactly. So she needs, okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Let's quickly do Murder, They Wrote, which is when we talk about the investigation into, and we haven't talked about the fact that Detective Quinlan is on the scene. I don't think we've mentioned that. And she is in this episode probably more than she is
twice,
in the entire rest of the season, or maybe equal.
Right, so like early in the episode, well not early, but before the end, when Bonnie's mom goes to the hospital, Bonnie sees Detective Quinlan at the hospital and goes nuts, kind of. She freaks out and starts screaming at her, like, what are you doing? And I think Jane comes over and she's like, hey, she's here for a DUI, chill. Which again, it's kind of like what I was talking about earlier with like Mary Louise looking at Bonnie, or like the car that passed her in that one, I think it was the first episode actually, where it's, you're meant to actually, we don't know how much Detective Quinlan is actually investigating this. And it's sort of meant to perpetuate that atmosphere of like paranoia that might drive someone to confess even though there's no actual investigation.
Yes. She is also present at the new lunch spot, not the coffee spot, not the fake Tom spot, but the lunch spot, where Renata and Madeline are talking about their custody situation. Then she shows up and just basically starts taunting Madeline about the Rainbow Connection speech.
It's
She's
weird.
just like, I heard you gave a pretty good speech.
It's really weird.
Which seems slightly unprofessional, frankly, but also indicates that she is at least still, well, does it indicate that she's monitoring their movements, or is it just that like, it was quite a memorable speech? I feel that, I remember it, and that it's kind of, she's plugged into the town, generally.
I think it's just meant to make you think that these women have reason to believe she's monitoring the movements, even if it's entirely possible she doesn't care, she's not investigating, she's over it. Because you remember earlier, it was I think last episode where Mary Louise goes to her office and tells her about the crime. We don't see her reaction. Like the show is trying to keep us on edge as to whether or not the crime is actually being investigated. I will say this, the way that Renata and Madeline respond to her, they might be as well be wearing guilty signs on their head. They like clearly freak out. They're like, oh, what are you doing here? You know, like. I
gotta be honest, Madeline keeps her cool. She's like, I'm sure it's on Instagram. People post stuff. Good for her.
She looks guilty
as she does, but she still looks sassy, and I appreciate her standing up for herself. I agree. I think we don't really. The paranoia is clearly what we're meant to feel, but I have no idea whether it's real. And that's one of the questions. All right, let's do. We have many questions in One Step Ahead, which is kind of when we ask questions about what's to come. The first question I have down here, we talked about this a little, but who is drowning and when did they drown? Because the last shot is, it looks like Bonnie, we're meant to think it's Bonnie. I have been trained to have some suspicions, and so I have some suspicions about whether it is Bonnie.
And whether or not it actually happens, or it could just be like a vision, a metaphor. And as you mentioned earlier, there is a shot, there was a shot at one point of Bonnie drowning, being pushed underwater as a child. There's also a shot in this episode of the mother like grabbing her really harshly as a child, suggesting that, again, everything suggests that the relationship was really fraught in some way. All I know is I don't think Bonnie actually drowns at any point in the remaining 3 episodes. I think the question is anyone actually going to physically drown? Is that actually going to be a plot element? Is it something that perhaps, my guess is actually tied to the next question, which is, what is the deal with Raymond? I think Raymond was probably drowned, and I don't think it was an accident.
Oh.
And I think that all of this drowning imagery is going to lead us to that point at some eventually.
I think that makes sense. I mean, it's just a tremendous amount of water on the show. I mean, they do live in Monterey. It is very beautiful, and I too like staring at the ocean. But yes, I think it's clear that it's a theme.
Can you swim?
Can I swim?
Are you a good swimmer?
Yeah. I don't know if I'm a good swimmer, but I do like swimming.
But you would not drown. You can.
I mean, it depends on how big the waves are, but you know, the Pacific Ocean is mighty. Be careful around the Pacific Ocean. But yeah, okay.
Yes.
Next question, how long will Ed and Madeline last at the Esalen Institute? Do you think we'll get to see this? I would love to.
Well, I don't think we're gonna see that in particular. I do think the question of whether or not Ed and Madeline are gonna get back together, or honestly, frankly, should be together.
Well, there should and will, which.
Which
you know, I don't think we're going to get 100% happy endings on this show. So maybe like a unhappy ending is, Well, and what's an unhappy ending? I don't know. Do we need to get into marriage at this point? I've revealed too much about myself already. I will no longer be commenting on this.
Listen, yeah, this episode has this kind of unanswered question, which is, Ed, she asked Ed if you're gonna stay, and he said, well, I haven't left. She's like, you're not here, right? And so there's this question of like, is he actually gonna rip the Band-Aid and leave, or is he gonna actually make an effort in some way and stay? And I think also the question of whether or not they should be together at all, which I alluded to earlier. I think that more likely than not, he is going to stay.
Yeah.
I don't know what that looks like. I hope it's not just like a pass, like it just doesn't just happen. Like I would hope that there's some sort of actual, I guess, movement on that front.
You want them to earn it. You want the show to earn everything.
Yeah.
All right, here's the next one. Who will tell Renata that she is overpaying for Botox?
I had no idea how much Botox costs.
I don't really either. It just seems like $4,000 or $2,000 is a lot.
Judging by the amount of people who get it, I am guessing it does not usually cost that much. I will say, Laura Dern looks fabulous.
She does.
So whatever she's doing is working, although maybe not in reality. Okay, I want to ask you this one.
Yeah.
Do you trust aquarium guy, Corey?
So I put this down. I have some questions. He just has not been on screen enough for him to have earned my trust. And I don't trust anyone in this show. And I think there is that nice scene when Jane is talking to him and explain what happens, and he responds well. Yeah. But it's also really short, and we don't see a lot.
Yeah, it's always kind of short. We're not really seeing a lot with him. He is the Bonnie of this season. He's very like underdeveloped. Like even in the previous episode when they're dancing and he makes a move and she kind of like is like, whoa, I have to move slowly. We don't really learn a lot about like who he is and how he feels about that. Like he feels more just like a kind of a sentence than a character at this point. Like, oh, okay, he's like on the spectrum, I think he said, and is kind of like a environmentally inclined person.
And the men on this show
tend to be that way.
I mean, the women as well. You don't trust anyone on this show. But I have some questions.
Can I just deviate? Because you were saying that, and I was thinking, well, this has been the season of Ed, I think. He's been fleshed out as a character more. Do you think there's anything going on with him and Bonnie?
No, I think it's just supposed to irk the other two.
Yeah.
That they're supposed to be the bigger people in the marriage.
He's a weird character, though, because they throw in all these like weird, creepy-ish moments with him. Like,
when he goes to the gym in the first season, that was
he's kind of weird with the daughter. He's weird with the woman at the grocery store. I don't know. Maybe I'm misreading it altogether, but I just kind of throws off kind of weird vibes.
It is being shown from Madeline's perspective, so I think that like Madeline and Nathan are definitely both really bothered by it, and you're supposed to pick up on that. I don't know whether there is. I mean, that would be full soap opera, but
that would be full soap opera.
This is a soap opera, so
it would be weird.
Okay, so this brings me to my last question, which I kind of mentioned earlier. Is the secret, like the main Perry-related, the five of us were trying to keep the secret, gonna come out at all? Because I am not totally sure, and I know now that I say this, like it will definitely be revealed to everyone within the first 5 minutes of next episode. But I'm just beginning to wonder if that is where the show's going.
I kind of don't think it matters, and part of me thinks because it doesn't matter, it won't. Like it feels like at the very beginning of this season, that secret, the cover-up of the murder, was everything. And it feels to me like as every episode has progressed, the stakes of that secret, the stakes of that cover-up have sort of been lowered in comparison to other things that are happening on the show.
I mean, it's like a Christmas tree, they're just hanging on more and more problems. And some of them come from the consequences of that, but some of them also just come from, like, these are complicated lives. Especially complicated, sort of like soap opera complicated, but that's fine. I agree, there's a lot going on.
I also think the secret we kind of discussed, or what we believe, or what I believe conspiratorially to be a secret around Mary Louise, whatever that is, whether it's, that Perry was Raymond's twin and ate him or something in the womb, and I don't know. But whatever it is, I think that secret has, in terms of like shock value or the import to the plot and these characters, has almost superseded the cover-up. And the revelation of whatever that is going to be more of a dramatic resolution than somebody finding out that it was self-defense and not actually a slip.
Yeah, I agree with that, though, of course. We may very well be wrong. We will find out. This has been Big Little Live in partnership with Buick. We will be back next week, but we will also be back tomorrow for our mid-season show where we are going to be taking your questions. So please send us questions at #BigLittleLive, big or small. We would really love to hear from you. Again, that is #BigLittleLive, and we will see you tomorrow.